Welcome back to the Giant series, where our aim is to increase awareness of lymphatic and oncology rehabilitation. I'm Tamryn Vivian from Lymphatic Therapy Centre, and here with us today we have Jane Wigg from the UK. Hi, Jane.
Hello, pleased to be here.
So Jane Wigg is the only authorized trainer of fluoroscopy-guided manual lymphatic drainage, or the fill and flush technique, in the UK. To date, Jane's knowledge and abilities have helped over 800 students successfully complete their MLD training. Jane has been at the forefront of lymphedema management for over 25 years, commencing one of the first lymphedema clinics in the UK. In 2002, Jane also commenced the Lymphedema Training Academy, or LTA, as a means of providing quality education in manual lymphatic drainage and other treatments for therapists. In 2014, LTA introduced fluoroscopy-guided manual lymphatic drainage, or FGMLD, and the fill and flush technique. She introduced that into the UK, and following extensive training and research, she has established the first UK lymphatic mapping clinic. Jane is a trustee of Lymphcare UK, and she is also the director of Lymph Vision, which provides world-leading lymphatic imaging and has already opened 4 clinics in the UK over the past year. She is the past chair of the British Lymphology Society and a conference organizer. So Jane, that's quite an impressive CV. We look forward to hearing about how you got to this.
Wow, thank you. I know, yeah, that's a lot to hear back like that, I have to say. So,
yeah, quite nice sometimes. So Jane, can you tell us your story and how you landed up where you are in your career?
Yeah, I suppose so. I think one of my earliest childhood memories is probably on my school report at the age of 5. I remember being told that Jane wears rose-tinted spectacles, rose-tinted glasses, and I didn't really know what that meant at the time, but of course now I know that it means we always look on the bright side of life, and we're always looking for something different and always happy within that. And you never want anyone to take that sparkle away, but of course things do come and do that at times throughout your life. I wanted to be in the Navy or a police officer, and I never actually grew enough to be a police officer. So being short meant I became a nurse, and that was probably the best decision, because that's got us to doing all of the things that I do now. So I think when I first became a nurse, I was running around a ward, and I longed for being one-to-one with patients so that we could give a bit more towards the patient. We could have more time with them and really get to know and understand and help better. So I became a breast care nurse background from that point on, and that led me into lymphedema. And I remember my first interview for lymphedema, which was, there were no lymphedema specialists at that point. So what do you do when you need a lymphedema therapist? You have to go and make one. So I always feel that I conned myself into that job, you know, that it was just something that I managed to talk myself into. And then I became a lymphomaniac, as many of us are. So it was a great start. So I worked in one of the first lymphedema clinics in the UK. And then from that went over to Compton Hospice, Compton Care. Now I was there for 15 years. When we were there, we set up a master's degree and a degree in lymphedema, which was one of the first in the country at the time as well, which was pretty good. And at that point, I was also doing lymphedema training privately in 2002. So that came into the hospice, and we brought Professor Albert Leduc over at that point in order to assist us with training. And then as things went on, we started to see things differently with the lymphatics, with fluoroscopy, and that led me into then coming back out of nursing to become full-time into setting up the Lymphedema Training Academy, but of course still seeing patients through Lymph Vision. So that's, in a nutshell, kind of where I am now.
That's fantastic. So you really were part of it from almost the beginning of your career. You started in breast care. So your life has really been dedicated to lymph.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe at least half of my life, I guess, or more than half of my life now, that I've hit a milestone a couple of years ago. So yeah, a long time.
Well, we're grateful that you went into nursing and you didn't become a police officer. So just for those of us... Sorry, continue.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that being a nurse, though, and that assessment we do with patients is a bit like detective work, particularly what we're doing now anyway with fluoroscopy. So maybe it all fits in.
There you go. So for those of us who don't really know what lymphedema is, are you able to just, in a nutshell, just explain what lymphedema rehabilitation is?
Yeah, lymphedema rehabilitation. I suppose when I first started it in lymphology and lymphedema, we were very much told that when you're in lymphedema, we're worried about the drainage system, the lymphatic drainage system, which, as we know, when our blood circulates and so on, we push fluid into the skin and the lymphatics drain 100% of that fluid away from the skin. And I was told that I needed to be understanding of the drainage routes. I think what we didn't understand then is how much of the immunological system is involved in the lymphatics now that we understand that. So lymphedema rehabilitation for me is not just looking at the basics of lymphedema management, maintenance therapy, which is generally considered 4 cornerstones of care. That's a term I've not used for many, many years. They tend to think of lymphedema management being skincare, exercise, compression, and self-lymphatic drainage or manual lymphatic drainage. And there's so much more to it than that. So rehabilitation allows for us to look at the patient holistically. It allows for us to look at not only the history, whether that's a cancer history or not, but any surgery, the things that are inhibiting the patient, their movement, their scars, their mobility, their lifestyle, gait and how they're walking, and so much more than just thinking about us removing fluid. And I think that's where lymphedema rehabilitation is really starting to go now with training.
Brilliant. So as I've said, you've dedicated your life to lymphatics, and you have made some real progress in the research and development of the profession. So can you tell us a little bit more on how you've changed the profession in the last few years and what your contributions have been? So it's really exciting.
It is really exciting, but I think that by my peers and colleagues, I've always been seen as an innovator. So even going back to my first clinic, I was always the one that had the pumps before anybody else had a pump, a laser before anybody else had a laser, measuring equipment before anyone else had it, bioimpedance, which was in Australia but not in the UK. So always as an innovator, and I think never accepting things for being as they are now. And I suppose I would think about, is that the best I can do for my patient? Is that what I'd want for my mother, my father, my children? And if it's not, then there has to be more. So I think that's where that comes from, always being an innovator and wanting something different. And that's when I moved into industry for a short while, was in an innovation role. And I suppose what's happened more recently is when you can see lymphatics moving for the first time, then it changes everything forever. And I remember talking with Professor Belgrado, who there is no fill and flush technique, there is no FGMLD without Professor Belgrado. Seeing those lymphatics moving for the first time was a wow moment, which I know it is for many, many people. It becomes more common now that people are fay with the technology a little bit. And I thought, I have to be able to do this. We have to be able to bring this to patients, be able to add to their treatments and to their lives. So I think that over the last few years, or 5 years particularly, the first thing was, we've got fill and flush, we've got fluoroscopy guided manual lymphatic drainage. How do we bring it to the masses? How do we bring it to the people? Because having those skills in your hands is one thing, but being able to disseminate that and make that wider is another thing. So I think that it's always about maybe not being satisfied with where you were. I had many therapists that were saying they were not satisfied with the results that they were getting, and so we know that we can get great results and responses by doing things differently. So it was to bring that and get those to be different. I don't think I've answered your question, sorry.
Yeah, you've answered a few of the coming questions.
So yeah, what have we introduced? I think fluoroscopy, we've introduced a different method of treating. One of those is being able to get more value, I think, get more for your buck. So being able to get better results in less time is really important in the world that we're living in. Getting quicker results in less time is more important, because time is money for everyone, including the patient that's coming to your clinic, and also including the therapist that's treating, and also just generally in life. So us introducing fill and flush and self-management for the patient has really meant that we can speed up outcomes, and it's simple fixes that have made a difference for patients carrying out their own self-management as well.
Brilliant. So I remember I did your course, I think it was March 2019, last year. It feels like a lifetime ago.
Yeah.
But going in and not really knowing what this was, I'd been doing manual lymph drainage for 10 years prior. And, you know, I had my pathways and I followed my pathways, and I pushed and moved the lymph away from the affected area. And then I remember the first day you said, okay, now forget all of that and let's learn something new. And I thought, oh, here's my lymphatic knowledge has just been flipped upside down. Now what do I do? So I remember leaving your course feeling quite nervous about seeing my first couple of patients, because I was doing something completely different to now what I'd been taught. But the results were amazing. So as you say, time is everything, and the outcomes, everything just took that much shorter. So patients were being able to go out in their garments much quicker. So just coming back to the actual camera and the mapping that you do, can you just explain a little bit more about how it works, what it is, and you know what the patient can expect if they come into a mapping clinic?
Yeah. So fluoroscopy is a method to be able to see real live images of lymphatics. So we call it, it's near infrared lymphofluoroscopy imaging. So for the first time, we've been able to see lymphatics moving. And we use a dye. It's not a dye, but it's called indocin green. And we inject it just underneath the skin for it to be attached naturally to the proteins and cells within the body, which will then be taken into the lymphatic system. We use a near infrared camera, so we work in the dark basically. We need to shut out natural daylight, but we're okay with other lights. And it will reflect the image of the indocin green dye that's been taken naturally through the lymphatic system, or not, as the case may be. And then we'll be able to see where the best routes are for drainage. So it's quite a long technique to get really good results. So there's some people that may carry out fluoroscopy, and after a couple of hours they may think that they've got the results that they want to see, but we actually need to continue it to look at different areas of the body, maybe injecting the thigh or somewhere else if we looked at the foot. So it will show us several things. It allows for us to see if, first of all, you have lymphatics, and the lymphatic system begins with the initial lymphatics. So we'll be able to see whether it's taken into the initial lymphatics or flooded into the skin. We can see whether the ICG is taken into the collecting vessels, those slightly deeper ones, and we can see whether it gets to a node and actually fills a node. So what we've been able to do from an MLD perspective is we've been able to see how many times it takes to empty a node, how many times it takes to move your hand on the skin to move the fluid along, what types of pressures you need to force the fluid through the top of the skin, the dermis, to get it to an area that it can drain. So fluoroscopy has given us lots of information, not only about the technique and seeing moving images, but to apply those learns into our patient care so that we can assist them and get their lymphatic system to work better. We've also learnt about new different drainage pathways, which we had no idea about before. And one of those, for example, I now call the Belgrado pathway, but a contralateral popliteal pathway, where we see fluid draining up one leg, across the abdomen, and descending down the opposite leg. And we might have thought that patients had swelling developing in the opposite leg previously, and we thought the lymphedema was getting worse, but maybe didn't have the idea it was coming from one leg and falling back down the other leg. So things like that have really changed our total understanding of how to help patients and improve patient care. And it's, I think the luxury I have, and Professor Belgrado has as well, is that we both work in patient care. So we're learning and researching in addition to be able to apply that to the training aspect, so that we know that your knowledge is always current and up to date. So fluoroscopy, it's not particularly painful. We do use the dose slightly different to other people, 100th of the dose, as we inject in a very small amount. And everybody carries on normally. We want them to go out and exercise following having the injection taking place, so that the ICG will find its way naturally throughout the tissue that we've injected into, and then we can have a look and map them after. And we'll literally draw the collecting vessels on that are functioning, or the areas where they're not functioning, and then we can devise a bespoke fluoroscopy guided MLD plan.
It's fantastic. I know what people are going to ask, because all of the risk reduction strategies say don't take blood from the affected arm or the affected limb. So can you just put everyone's mind at ease about the injection sites?
Yes, absolutely. So first of all, we use the smallest needle that you can have, the same as an insulin needle, and not everybody, but diabetics are injecting themselves with that many times a day and don't get any problems. Everything is also sterile. So it's a sterile needle as we clean the site and so on. And so I can report that I've never had any infections, never had any cellulitis on any patients, or any reaction. We've had a couple of reactions from people that are nervous, so they have just a little bit of a vaso attack where they're a bit because they're worried about it, but they're worried about that generally, it's not come from the injection itself. That's happened on two people, and it's just because of being nervous of everything else that's going on, and no other side effects, nothing at all. So we've never seen any cellulitis. There's nothing to worry about from that perspective.
Brilliant. So here at the Lymphatic Therapy Center, we have been fortunate enough. You've helped Alison Dendy with Lymph Insights, and we've managed to do a few of our mapping clinics here. And as you say, it's pretty mind altering to actually see the lymph on camera, and to be able to see how your hands can manipulate the lymphatics going through the body, and things that you didn't think. So the pathways that you mentioned, I mean, we've had a fantastic pathway that we saw the other day that went from the left leg, went across the pelvis and up to the right axilla. So my therapy would never have been successful if I'd carried on with the normal pathways. I would never have gone to the axilla on the opposite side. So I think that the applications for the mapping is just amazing, and the future holds really great things for lymphatics.
Yeah, and I've seen that pathway a few times now, and I think when we first started to do this, we said that doesn't happen. We've never seen it, but we have to remember that fluoroscopy mapping is new. So we're seeing things for the first time, and I've just presented some work at the Australasian Lymphology Association conference, pulling all of our mapping pathways that we've seen back together again after a couple of years of building some more evidence, and Professor Belgrado's got these as well. But it's really nice because our colleagues at Alert in Australia, you might be aware of, so Hiru Shawami, he's been also doing some work with fluoroscopy in Australia, and what we're seeing and the incidences are more or less the same. So it again builds evidence that we're all hitting around about the same things, so that evidence to go into training is correct, and reassuring as well, you know, that we're not seeing some random things that are one-offs, you know. So yeah, it's been fabulous, and I think what that allows to see, that pathway that you had, I don't know whether that was a patient that had gynae surgery. Well, I've seen it on a gynae surgery and primary patient, on one primary patient, but it allows for us to understand that diagnosis better and the incidences of draining. But I think from a training perspective, you've seen that once, we've seen it twice. If you think about the numbers of patients that don't have that, it allows for us to understand, don't get draining people on pathways that probably don't exist. Put your time into the areas that you need to.
So that leads into the next question of, do you need to have a camera to do FGMLD?
Excellent question. No, you don't need to have a camera to do FGMLD. That's the whole point, really, of us doing the fluoroscopy, us learning where those pathways are, means that we can put that into the training in order to make that dispersed to more therapists and more training. Of course, if your patient is mapped, then it is better if you can get the results of the mapping. But I think the other thing with the mapping is that you need to be really knowledgeable, not just about the lymphatic system, but have you know, quite a lifetime of experience of lymphedema and causes. And we can teach that on training, of course, but in order to be picking, could it be this, could it be that, what about the genetics, what's going on with this, in order to get a good diagnosis and then apply the mapping to that for that individual patient as well. So on your training, what we'll do is teach you how to fill, how to flush, where the fill spots are, and bring that from the research to put it into kind of a cohort of patients.
We're glad we have you to go off of. So you've got all this information in your head. You've got these wonderful techniques with your hands, but you can't keep it all to yourself. So tell us, how are you getting this around the world? You've reached so many corners of the earth now with your technique. How are you doing that? Who are you training and how?
Well, I think I'm very fortunate, really, to have been on this platform of international teaching, and I'm always grateful for that I've had that opportunity. And those opportunities have come because of, I think, being excited and being innovative, and feeling that we do have something that is worthy, that if we don't tell our story, if we don't get this out there, there are hundreds of thousands or millions of patients who are not getting the ultimate care. I think ultimately that means that patients are doing things every day that maybe they don't need to do. So it's taking up a lot more time in their life when they could be getting their life back and doing a quicker form of manual lymphatic drainage. So I think one of these key things is it's not just MLD. So the Lymphedema Training Academy is not just MLD, fluoroscopy guided MLD and the fill and flush technique. It is the whole cancer and lymphedema rehabilitation of the patient. And so how have we got that through? I think contacts, really. It's been on a global platform presenting conference papers on many different things. I've got a passion for innovation, so I've done lots of research on looking at different compression pumps and many different things and lasers. So I've had opportunities to present those, which means that I've had the opportunity to be able to also teach in those countries. So our key bases being Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, India, Singapore, China. We've got a China Training Academy as well. So UK, of course. So yeah, lots of different places. And it means that we need some really good trainers in those countries as well. And I'm delighted, you know, that you're one of our trainers. And we've got you along with Candice and Alison and Sue's both in South Africa. So it's incredible that we've got such a great group of people.
And great it is. But I have heard that you've got interesting courses as well. So you don't only teach lymph and oncology related courses. There's something that I've heard about laughing yoga.
Yeah, laughter yoga. So how did I get onto laughter yoga? I think because it seems a crazy thing to do, but don't we all feel better when we laugh? So, or laugh, depending where you come from. When we laugh, you know, they say the whole world laughs with you as well. And I've certainly found that. And I think one of the things that I've gone into being a bit fluffy, and people are finding this a bit strange that Jane Wigg's going fluffy, because I've always been so research, this, that and the other. But we know so many things which are a little bit outside the research area are also good for us, particularly when we're looking at mindset and mental health. So laughter yoga is a great thing. It's crazy, and I have to say I was skeptical when I first started doing laughter yoga. But if you're out with your mates and you're having a good laugh, you come home and you feel really good. So if you could start your day with 10 minutes laughing, then that would put you in a really good place in the morning to get on and you know, champion the day and achieve those things that you need to do. So we do laughter yoga. We've got some laughter yoga trainers. We've not done so much of it, but they have been doing the laughter yoga organization have been doing online laughter yoga and telephone laughter yoga as well.
Wow.
over lockdown.
Oh, brilliant.
So yeah, that's been a great thing. The other thing that we're doing also now, it's come from some of my passion research. I don't know if you've seen me present about passion and why nurses and therapists have lost their passion, particularly within the NHS and particularly within the UK, but working and losing your passion because of maybe the people that you're working with, the way in which you're treated, the rewards that we have, then we can lose our passion. So following on from why we lose our passion and articles and presentations that I've done around that, I've now started to teach on turnabout. So it's called turnabout training, and it's to look at us. Sometimes, life's a bit upside down, and let's turn that around and take a look at it. And so that's mindset training as well, but also to help us with our patients, because sometimes we say that patients are non-concordant. And I don't really think that patients are non-concordant, or they don't. If we had a choice, we wouldn't really choose to not do the right thing or the good thing or the healthy thing. But sometimes it's not us that's choosing. Sometimes it's that little voice in your head that's, oh, have a rest, don't go out, don't go for a run, have the cake, you deserve a cake. And I think if we can understand that voice is there and that we can try and intercept that, then I think we can change great things for not only ourselves but also for patients, and sometimes the rut that they're stuck in with a lifelong condition, which is really hard and really tough to have that every day of your life. So it's trying to get those lymphedema warriors and ourselves being warriors as well, and so that's our turnabout training.
Yeah, it sounds fantastic because we take on a lot as therapists. We with our patients for an hour, sometimes an hour and a half, and we get to know them as friends, and we take a lot of their worries onto our shoulders as well. So I think it's important to look after ourselves so that we can look after more people.
And I think one of the things that I've learned is that we always put ourselves last. We worry about the kids and our parents, and we do this and we make sure work's okay, and then once everything else is done, we might fall into bed. And so if you look after you first, then you've got the strength to do all of those other things. So yeah, really important.
You might fall into bed with an empty tummy and a full bladder. That's usually what happens because we just carry on the day like that.
Yeah,
no, that's really great. So something has also come out a little bit on the internet, and we've seen a very interesting collaboration. We previously had Lou from Pink and Steel on our Giant series, and I see that now there's a collaboration between LTA and Pink and Steel. This is very exciting. How is it going to work?
Well, it's fantastic. I'm really excited about it because we were looking at writing an LTA onco rehab training course, and one of the things that about that is that there are already people out there who are specialists doing this, much more knowledge than, I'm not saying that the Lymphedema Training Academy's got more than I've got. I'm not an onco rehab specialist, so it makes sense to have a collaboration with people that have got that knowledge, and you get it from the horse's mouth, as they say, with all of the details rather than a diluted copy of that. So we're really thrilled to be working with Lou and Pink and Steel. It's a fantastic collaboration. So what's going to happen is that we will be running our full training and she'll be running her full training, and we'll just do an introductory slot within that training, and then from that we'll do a 3-day course for each other. So 3-day on lymphedema, some basic training, 3-day on Pink and Steel basic training, and then if you want to, you can slot across onto our full training and become fully certified within those training, if that's what you need to take on. So that's how it's going to work, is a 3-day training and then going on to the full day training, or they might just choose to come on to the full certification, skipping the 3-day, depending on what it works. Of course, when you do the full certification, you will have to have some practical hands-on. So it will be country specific for looking at that and how that works, and with our trainers in those countries as well. And it's really nice that we have got some dual trained therapists. That's only coincidence, really, that our trainers, we've got, yourself and Candice, and Dibiendu, who's our trainer in India, is also Pink and Steel trained. So it's great that we have got dual trained therapists in both, and you can look at that total holistically from the patient's perspective.
Yeah, we've also got Natalie Powell in Joburg. She's also dual trained. So I think we've got 3. Yeah. I really do see the link between them, though. I mean, having done both of the trainings, it's such a wonderful step into the next certification. So I think that this collaboration is really going to fly, and I wish you all the best with it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I hope so. And I think it's really wonderful that we can be in the UK and they can be in New Zealand, and we can get that collaboration from over the other side of the world. You know, make a small place. So yeah, very, very happy with that.
All right. So where can we find more information about your programs and your academy?
Yeah, well, we've got social media. So you can follow us at Lymph Training, either on Facebook or on Twitter. We've got a Facebook page as well, and we've got our website. So our website is lymph.org.uk. In South Africa, we've got ltaafrica.com as well, and we've got our Facebook page in South Africa as well. So take a look at those, and yeah, I hope to hear from you. But admin@lymph.org.uk will get you, I think, everywhere that you need to go.
So if you'd like to have a mapping or visit a mapping clinic, in the UK, you can go to lymphvision.com. And in South Africa, we've got in Joburg and Cape Town at Lymph Insight, and a mapping clinic at Lymphatic Therapy Centre. So one more question for you. Do you prefer oceans or mountains?
Oh, that is really tough, because I have a holiday home in Wales, which has been a sanctuary over lockdown, and the sea is at the front of it and the mountains are at the back of it. And we always say we could be anywhere in the world when we're here, because you go to Jamaica and you've got the sea in the front and the mountains in the back. And so a little bit of Wales is really lovely with that. I think oceans.
Oceans. Didn't you do your first open water swim the other day?
Open water swim?
Didn't you?
No, I was kayaking.
Okay.
I've been doing a lot of running on the beach. Yeah, so I'm just picking back up my running after thinking that my knees are too old and I shouldn't be running. I'm just starting to pick that back up. So yeah, it's good.
Exercise is good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Always. All right, Jane, thank you so much for joining us today. And for our viewers, you can find us at lymphatictherapycentre.com. So thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you very, very much for having me.
We'll chat soon.